What happened today is I went and I sat on a panel, Health Matters, which is an initiative that the Hawn Foundation has basically brought here and Humana sponsoring. And it was really an illuminating experience because it's the first time that I have been anywhere where there's been an actual conference on well-being. That's something I believed in for a very, very long time. It's an extremely important subject. A lot of people looked at well-being maybe 10 years ago and thought it was some woo-woo idea. And now we're in crisis, and now we have this conference. I sat on this conference, and it was extraordinary to sit with people who are doing wonderful things for humanity. And it makes me realize that private sector is, and that's all of us here, we are the ones that really can make the difference. We can be the game changers in our society. So I feel very empowered by being invited to sit on this panel. I feel very happy that you're here. And we go way back, needless to say, to the very beginning, and it was one of the great memories of my life. Thank you, Bill.
Well, first, thank you, John and Danielle, for hosting this. Thank you, Kate. Michael Kevis, my long-lost son. My son finally got a green card, he's legal. Kate came to see me a few weeks ago in New York and gave me her book, told me what she was doing. I read the book, I checked the work out, and she said, I want you to come by this event because we had this healthcare conference today, and it's part of the revamping of the Bob Hope tournament, which I hope we can save now for the Valley. And we have, I think we're on the way. We got 15 more people participating in it, and we finally got a focus on health and wellness, which I think it will be appealing to a lot of the people on the PGA Tour, and maybe get them to come participate here in a way that would be a good thing to kick off the golf year every year for people who are doing something beyond just playing golf and trying to make money and entertain people. So I'm very excited about this. But I want to thank all of you for being here because in my declining years, I make a list of all the things that I'm determined to know more about before I leave the earth. For example, I think it's pretty neat that 10 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to have the same atmospheric conditions we do and might be able to support life. Now, if we're not alone on this planet, I want to know that before I go. And last year, about 8 months ago, at the Fermi Lab in Illinois, atoms were crashed into each other, and subatomic particles called muons were measured. And before this experiment, from the dawn of the science of physics, everybody always assumed that positively charged subatomic particles and negatively charged ones had to be in equal balance in order for us to hold together. The problem was, if everything was static, nobody could ever figure out how we got here in this beautiful house tonight from being one-celled organisms in the primordial slime billions of years ago. Turns out the positive ones slightly outweigh the negative ones, which for all the cockeyed optimists in the crowd tonight should be very encouraging. But it's the first thing we've ever learned, literally in 40 years, that may give us a way to understand how physics and chemistry and biology work. And the most exciting thing of all, a couple of months ago, at the biggest physics machine in the world, the CERN Super Collider in Switzerland, they fired subatomic particles called neutrinos at a magnet in the Italian Alps, and it appeared that they got there before they left. That is, it appeared that they travel faster than the speed of light. So I asked Brian Greene, whom I know, a lot of you probably may have read his books. He's the most probably well-read, popular science writer in America today. I said, Brian, do you think it happened? He said, nope. I said, so what are the explanations? He said, there's a boring one and an exciting one. I said, what's the boring one? He said, the boring one is they measure the speed like with the GPS system, and satellites are a long way to measure, billions of a second. I said, what's the exciting one? He said, the exciting one is that they slipped through a hole in reality and took a shortcut. And there is actually a fourth dimension, which may mean that the parallel universe that many people in Washington live in is real after all. I mean, it's utterly unbelievable. I mean, this is an exciting time to be alive, in spite of all the current problems. But the most important thing I want to understand before I depart the earth is the mind, the brain, and consciousness and conscience, and what animates what appear to be automatic, non-rational responses. And literally, Goldie's model is the only one I know that's trying to teach kids how their brains work and how they can be in control of their lives. If you think about all the things we do that are self-destructive, even those of us who are no longer young, and when it's over, we say, well, I just had to do that, or I couldn't help myself. I remember when we were about to make peace in the Middle East, I thought, in 2000, and the second intifada began in Israel. You may all remember this, when the then candidate for Prime Minister, Ariel Sharon, walked up on the Temple Mount, the first Israeli politician to do so since 1967, with 200 Israeli policemen. So I called Yasser Arafat and I said, I know what you're going to do. You're going to have a hell of a demonstration. You're going to force some of the Israeli policemen to kill your kids. Then all hell's going to break loose. You don't have to do that. I said, don't do that. He said, I have to. He said, we're going to be humiliated. This has not happened in 30 years. It's just a cheap political trick. We have to. I said, I am something of an expert in humiliation. And he started laughing. And I said, here's what I know. No one can humiliate you without your permission. He said, well, what would you do? What would you do? I said, find the most beautiful Palestinian girl you can, 10 years young or younger. Buy her the nicest dress you can afford, made by Palestinians. Give her a beautiful bouquet of flowers. And when Sharon comes up on the Temple Mount with 200 police officers to protect him, you stand at the other end alone with the little girl. Walk him out and meet him in the middle. Have her hand him the flowers. Offer him a tour of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, and say when it's yours, he can come back every day. I said, if you do that, it will change the entire landscape of global opinion, including in Israel. Do that. He said, I can't. Of course he could, but he thought he couldn't. Every day, when some kid acts out in school, or can't concentrate, or do something else, it's a replay of that. Something they can't help that they can. She has made it her business to try to figure out how to teach kids to work their way out of destructive and into positive behavior. This is a stunningly important thing. Last year, 39,000 Americans died from drug overdoses. More than died in car wrecks or from gun injuries. More and more young people are dying by mixing not cocaine or heroin, but prescription drugs with liquor and beer, and then going to bed, and the combination shorts out the electrical circuits that operate the brain and the heart, and because they're alone and asleep, they die. They're all young and healthy, and if it happened to them in midday, they get 100% to be revived. and would be chagrined and then go on with their lives. In the last 6 weeks, 2 young men, one of my across the street neighbors, 30 years old, one of my closest friends, who's the young man worked for me, had this happen to them. What were they thinking? What were the people who gave them the initiative thinking? They weren't thinking, but they were. People get on automatic. All of us do this. We have automatic responses to circumstances which we should have conscious responses to. There's hardly anything more important in the world to teach young people. At the bottom, that's really what Goldie's trying to do. You know, for all of her lifelong portrayals of Dixie Blondes, she has totally destroyed my ability to tell a blonde joke. Every time I get to the punchline, I think about Goldie trying to figure out how the brain works, and it escapes me. I say this, you're doing a good thing here today. We know you can talk all you want about politics and all the changes we need to make. The truth is that the political system is limited by the choices the voters make when they vote, as they did in 2008, or when they vote and don't vote, as they did in 2010. That is a function of the level of consciousness, self-awareness, sense of possibility we all have. That's what she's trying to give these kids. And in very simple ways, these children are being taught lessons that Sigmund Freud did not fully understand because of all that's happened in the last 100 years and what we know about human behavior. This is a huge deal. So I want you to have a good time. We'll mingle and gossip and talk about whatever you want. Just, the most important thing in the world is that this generation of young people not die sooner than their parents did because of childhood obesity, diabetes, and its attendant consequences. And that they not be the first generation of Americans to have a lower standard of living than their parents because we can't figure out how to build a world of shared responsibilities and shared prosperity. Those things are important. Understanding how you think, how you feel, how you react, and what you do not do, as well as what you do, is the beginning of our young people beginning to learn, beginning to be able to maximize their education, and beginning to build the future that we'd all like to leave for them. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for you for what you're doing. Thank you. Bless you all.